So, INTJ, how can you dress yourself to showcase your inferior function that is going to help you to appear like you have mastered it? So, to simply put, we all run away from our inferior function. We try to camouflage or try to not showcase our inferior function so much because it's what we are insecure about, it's where our fear lies. And so this series is dedicated just talking about how we can utilize our inferior function through the lens of fashion and styling to give you the push or the perception that you have mastered your inferior function. So I know that the concept itself can sound a little bit out there, but to give you a concrete example, so for INFJs, because they have SE inferior function, so it's going to be literally the same for INTJs, slightly different for INTJs, but I did a video for INFJs specifically talking about how they can use their inferior function to dress themselves, to achieve their image goals, to achieve their goals in life. So typically INFJs, they are softer in nature, a little bit more ethereal, feminine. When I say feminine, it doesn't mean it's just for women, but the softer side of things can also be on styling. Okay, so it's lacking of structure, it's not so much of tailored pieces, but they rather dress a little bit more pared back because they don't want that feeling of overshadowing or taking the attention from other people. So they don't like that because of their extroverted feeling. But they do have a sense of quirkiness to them. Now, going back to how this inferior function is going to help you to achieve your life goals is because INFJs, when they speak, often it's harder for them to articulate what they want to say. They appear very abstract, they have foresight, but if they don't have very good communication skill, they don't know how to articulate in a direct manner, they can kind of beat around the bush, become very abstract and ambiguous, which their dressing can also be very abstract, can also be very individualistic, to the point that it really appears that this person is all in their head rather than present reality. So some INFJs, because of extroverted sensing inferior, they tend to not approach certain colorway or certain style, even though it's known in the world of fashion, dress for success, that it actually helps with impression management. How do you appear more competent? And because extroverted sensing is their inferior function, they kind of detach, or not, maybe not intentionally, but they're kind of far away from what actually works. That's why tapping into their extroverted sensing, using it to showcase certain fashion style, is going to help them to social engineer and help to control a little bit on how people perceive them. So this video is for INTJs, which is going to be the same inferior function, extroverted sensing. So because INTJs have introverted intuition as their first function, their second function is extroverted thinking. This means that they do have a side of them that is nagging at them to be effective, to be efficient, to conserve their time, to be very wise at how they are doing certain things, which is why they are called the strategist, the mastermind, because they have a vision, they kind of have a plan on how it's going to work out, and so they are like the architect. So for INFJ, it's a little bit different. They're more about the people, the values, the society, how everything is going to work out ethically. But for INTJs, it's more of like, what's their mastermind plan? What's their long-range vision, long-range plan? And so they tend to be thinking so much about systems, how things work, geeking out on certain tech stuff, or how certain thing works, right? They kind of neglect how they should present themselves, are client-facing. Although they are very genius here, they have the brilliant idea or the solution, the master plan, the blueprint, but they don't dress the part because they neglect their extroverted sensing. It can take a toll, and it can obviously cause them to miss opportunities. Mastering your extroverted sensing also means that this INTJ needs to be very much in the present moment, needs to take a step back and assess reality, need to appear grounded, and therefore the stereotypical things that INTJs would wear would be something very practical, something that it's not fancy, it's nothing that is too outstanding to the point that somebody would actually make a comment and say, wow, you really have a sense of style. That is like, wow, you look individualistic. For fashion there, unless the INTJ of course is working in a world of fashion, but I would say that the INTJs who have underdeveloped extroverted sensing and that they are not aware of how people perceive them because of extroverted feeling trickster function in their shadow, this can cause them to dress like whatever that they want that is practical, that makes them look like they are totally incompetent, or looking like a robot, or just plain boring because they think that why the hell would people care about my dressing when all it matters is here. Again, INTJs similarly to INFJs, because they share the same inferior function, this also means that they have fears and insecurities about their performance. How do they appear to other people? Some INTJs are very conscious about their appearance, and therefore they will go all the way to study about fashion and making sure that they are well groomed and look a certain way. They can also be very obsessed about it because of extroverted sensing inferior. So your inferior function is kind of like you aspire to be, like you aspire to master your sensation, your physical reality. So it could be how you do your hair, your grooming, your outfit. It can also be how your house should look like, the interior, the kind of furniture that it should have, all the small little things. You can definitely showcase or use your extroverted sensing, but maybe not as healthy as someone that has a personality that has extroverted sensing as their first function. And so for INTJs, if you don't think about how to use your extroverted sensing through your fashion style, you could be missing out on the action of enclosed connection, because what you wear, it rewires what you think about yourself. It can shape how you behave towards other people, and it obviously can shape how people perceive you. Sorry, the video got cut off. So, going back to INTJs, how do they use their inferior SE to dress for their image goal, or to, in a way, flex their inferior function so it doesn't come off looking like a weakness? So, for INTJs, if most of the fashion advice that you've gotten is wear minimalist things, be more basic, anything that is minimal, it's more sophisticated and refined. There is some truth to that, but that doesn't really help you to master or flex your inferior extroverted sensing, especially when you are in the creative world or you are client facing. You do need to inject some sort of individuality and creativity to your outfit. So when you wear things that are too basic, nothing that is too outstanding, it's not about dressing to create such a big statement, but it's how do you then inject your status, your flair, and most importantly, your competence. So INTJs care a lot about their credibility, their reputation, competence. They are assured. People misunderstand how they can be very cold at times and be too direct and upfront. And when they wear things that are too minimalist, cold, it can just emphasize the effect that they are unable to relate to people. And so if you're INTJ working in industry where you need to influence people, whether it's you are in a managerial role or it's to pitch something where it comes to business, right? You do need charisma, a good combination of warmth and competence. So it cannot just be competence all the way, and which is why you will come off looking like aloof and people don't find you relatable. That's why making you miss opportunities or you find it harder to articulate or sell your ideas. So this video, making INTJs aware of how their inferior extroverted sensing shows up through their dressing style. Have a bit of that awareness and reflect on your current wardrobe, and then hopefully it gives you a sort of strategy, vision on what you should get when it comes to dressing for your image goals. So first, let's look at how inferior SE shows up for INTJs in the context of fashion, dressing. So inferior SE insecurity shows up as the discomfort of being seen. So these are the INTJs who likes to be in the shadow. These are the INTJs who have the discomfort of being seen. So what does this mean is, if let's say they are supposed to attend an event, they really don't like to be in the center of the attention, or they really want to attract too much of that, hey, look at me kind of vibe, because that is very far from who they are. But at the same time, they get pissed off when people don't respect them. So there's this conflict in INTJs that they want to be seen, they want to be understood, but at the same time, they're like, oh, you know what, I don't really want the attention because I feel secure of myself. And the part about them not wanting to be understood actually is another paradox about them, is that they do want to be understood, but when you actually understand them, they will just say something like, oh, so you think it's easy to understand me. So it's like, it's a very interesting paradox that INTJs have. So before we go off tangent, let's focus on how their insecurity shows up, their extroverted sensing. So apart from the discomfort of being seen, they avoid anything that is too bold, statement making, because it feels like noise to them. So anything that it's maybe wearing a red blazer or like a trending color or a trending element that it's outstanding to them, it's kind of like they are desperately asking for attention, which if it suits the occasion, if it helps them with their image goal or their objectives in life, there's nothing wrong with it. So INTJs needs to be open-minded in that way. And then of course the third thing is, some INTJs, they do neglect their grooming. It's something that I would say it really depends on where the INTJ is at in their life, but I see both end, right? And it's never really in the right middle ground. I have seen those that have a perfect balance, but that is INTJ that has gone through a lot of their inner work to have the realization that they need to do certain things in order to be intentional about it. So stereotypically, INTJs, because they have inferior extroverted sensing, this also means that they are insecure or they fear about how they are being perceived or their performance, how people experience them. So they can either obsess with their grooming, where it's kind of like that OCD behavior of, oh, my hair, it needs to be done in a certain way, or else, like it's that trying to control the physical reality that is seemingly unhealthy. It would be totally oblivious, where they don't really care because all they care about is my intellect, my character, that's all that matters. Who cares about what's happening on the outside? That is the ignorant INTJ who is avoiding trying to interact with their inferior extroverted sensing INTJs. You have introverted intuition as your dominant, your first function. So this means that you are very much in your head, thinking about your vision, your long range, you're thinking steps ahead in front of everybody else. So with that kind of foresight and that kind of NI that is happening in your head all the time, and because your second function is extroverted thinking, this means that you care a lot about effectiveness, efficiency, what's the cheapest, fastest way to get things done. If that too goes in a loop, you kind of neglect maybe your introverted feeling, and most importantly, this video's topic is your extroverted sensing, your physical reality. Suddenly they are overworking themselves and they don't realize that they didn't eat for like 2 days, or they didn't eat for the entire day because they don't feel their hunger. It could be an INTJ that is so focused on their competence, their intellect, that they neglect how they appear to other people because they think people don't care. It's because they have lost touch with their physical reality. So this can look like they're choosing comfort over a certain kind of outfit that serves the occasion or the function, the purpose of wearing something that would mean something, being intentional with what they wear so that it actually sends out the right message. So they will overlook things like that. And whenever they need to try something new, they're just like, nope. It's more of like, it doesn't go with their inferior extroverted sensing because they don't even know how it's going to appear like to them. And because they are unable to evaluate their present moment, therefore they just kind of neglect things that are new. I guess INTJs, if you tend to dress in such a way, you cannot blame others for not being able to connect with you then, because you are not putting in effort to dress for other people. I have heard INTJs who told me that, why do I care about what other people think of my outfit? I dress what I like. That, to me, honestly, it's a underdeveloped or slightly immature INTJ, because now I'm not saying all INTJs, when they say things like that, it's bad. This particular INTJ is someone that has a position in a workplace that requires them to influence, that requires people to relate to them. However, with this kind of mindset, the person is probably wondering, why is it so hard for people to be influenced by me, to be persuaded by me? Why is it so hard for me to get my point across, and I'm causing so many miscommunication with people? They just don't realize that they don't dress the part. And sometimes it's also because you have a younger feature. People just don't take you seriously, even though your job title says a certain thing, but then you look like you are 10 years younger, and you get frustrated with the fact that you're wearing very casual outfits, and then people are like not taking you seriously as how they should, because you are not dressing your intellect. So the 3 inferior extroverted sensing wardrobe pattern that shows up for INTJs, this would be very different, slightly different from INFJ, because their cognitive function makeup is slightly different, although they share the same inferior function. So pattern number 1, the invisible uniform. So because, as I've mentioned at the start, for INTJs who are not very familiar or have flex trying to grow their inferior extroverted sensing, they would try to hide in the background. They would want to be invisible. I have worked with a few clients who are INTJs when it comes to transforming their personal style and enhancing it. Most of them are stereotypically just wearing things that is safe. Like for men, it will just be blue shirt, grey shirt, nothing too interesting or outstanding about it. You just look like they are completely clueless about how to create a tasteful or a slightly creative, refined outfit. They're unable to put that all together, but they are very willing to learn all of this, and can be one of those types that would appear one of the most fashionable types if they master the skills of fashion styling. Or when they do it intentionally, you wouldn't be able to tell that this is an INTJ, because they're able to adapt to situation. So the invisible uniform for INTJs would stereotypically be anything that's all black, safe colors, neutral, nothing interesting about the cutting, there's no play of texture, anything that makes them look invisible, and they wear that thing over and over again because they could care less about putting their time and energy to mix and match interesting outfits. So the outfit looks fine, but it's forgettable. Pattern number 2, the underfinished look. They have great outfit idea, but they overlook on the finishing touch. So for example, maybe the watch doesn't match the outfit, maybe the belt color is slightly off from the shoe color. It could be their shirt is great, but it's wrinkled. They don't really notice that they need to iron it. It could be shoes that they wear over and over again that they don't realize that it needs some sort of maintenance, that is slightly scuffing off. And even knitted outfits, because they don't really put their time and energy to maintain their outfit. They can buy a sweater, or somebody buys it for them, like a cardigan, but because there is a certain care that is needed to take care of this kind of fabrication, so you will see that maybe their t-shirt or their cardigan is like peeling a little bit, but for them it's like they're just gonna look at it like, okay, well, it's such a small thing, nobody's gonna realize anyways, because this is inferior extroverted sensing. I'm sure if they appear in front of a ESFP or ISFP, they will definitely call them out for it, or ESTJ for sure. And then pattern number 3, the event costume. I'm sorry to use the word costume, but this is the best way that I can explain it, because you avoid attention most of the time. And then when you actually need to dress up something, it's kind of like ENTPs in a way, where you will kind of go overboard without realizing that it's overboard, because you are weak in your inferior extroverted sensing. There are moments where it's just like when INTJ is in a group, right? This is when they overuse their NI and their TE, or their NI and their FI. Yes, their introverted intuition, and then they overuse their introverted feeling, what I feel like doing, what I feel is real, and then they will keep thinking about it, their future. when they are so much in their head that when suddenly they just feel exhausted, this is when this extroverted sensing would emerge and take over. This is what we call in MBTI the in the grip experience. You could almost say that it's kind of like someone who is very controlled and precise all the time, and then one day the person is so sick and tired of being so controlled and precise all the time. When they come home, they just do everything that is opposite. It's like someone who goes on a very strict diet, and then it's like all or nothing, and then one day it kind of hits them, they just go all out. So it's the same concept that applies to INTJ who don't really practice or have some relationship with their inferior function, extroverted sensing. So then this becomes the part where they are uneducated about fashion completely, and they will just wear things that makes them look like they are too much and too extreme. So it kind of goes into this loop. That's why they want to look invisible, because every time they try to wear something that is a little bit more individualistic, they haven't learned how to do it. So they do it once in every blue moon, thinking that it will help them. They can get lazy in a situation where they think it's so easy for them to master a skill without putting in the hard work and the repetition that gets them to mastery. Most of the time they dress very basic, and then one day for an event, they kind of go all out because they feel like, you know what, I'm just going to go all out. And then when it finally happens, people start looking at them strangely. They don't feel congruent to themselves. It's kind of like going beyond their intention of dressing that way, and it kind of goes against everything that they wanted to do, which is, I want to utilize my extroverted sensing in a healthy way, but because they use it so infrequently, so rarely, that when it comes out in the wrong way. And so this goes back into the loop of why they want to look invisible all the time. So how people can misread your wardrobe patterns. Pay attention to this wardrobe pattern that might emerge if you allow your extroverted sensing to take over you in an unhealthy way. Is that your intent could be, I'm a serious person, I'm very intellectual, I bring a lot of value to the table, I'm very competent, I don't need to show off. Although that's your vibe, your impact can really look like you are unable to lead, you are unable to influence people. Although you're the smartest person in the room, but nobody else wants to follow you or relate to you, they don't support your vision, it also doesn't help you with anything. And because you're not socially calibrated, you don't really care about trends, so it kind of looks like you don't know what is happening in the present moment. And perhaps you might just look too junior because the things that you're wearing, you prefer to be more casual than credible, because you think that people care more about your intellect, when in actual fact, it is not helping you to get the opportunities or to get to the position that you want. So in professional room, authority is partly a sensory experience. So if you don't intentionally apply authority to your physical reality, which is your outfit, that is where you're going to be missing out if one of your goals in life is to climb up the corporate ladder or want to influence or want to lead. Maybe you just have a brilliant business idea that you want to pitch, but people don't take you seriously, again, because you don't look like someone that has authority, that is competent, that is credible, so people find it harder to trust you. So here I'm going to break down some key styling strategies that INTJs can adopt in order to flex their inferior extroverted sensing. This is how you can use your inferior extroverted sensing to make you feel more confident, makes you feel like you are actually flexing your inferior function in a healthy way. So the whole goal for INTJs would be quiet sensory authority. So it's authoritative but not in an outstanding way. So number one, you need one structured anchor. So this could be, maybe you found out that your body shape, you're probably lacking weight on top. You might want to pick a tailored blazer, a structured jacket that complements you, that is in neutral color, that can be mixed and matched with many other pieces. So there are times that you want to just wear a t-shirt, you can always put on that jacket to kind of add the competence and the authority. If a blazer looks too corporate looking, you can always go for your patch pocket jacket that looks like a blouson, like a bomber jacket, but in a color that is authoritative. So it could be navy, it could be charcoal gray. Maybe not black, because you are already very intimidating by nature. So wearing black is just going to enhance the part that you are unapproachable. So think about that. Maybe jacket is not your thing. Just make sure that your shirt is well tailored. It is on a brighter color. Again, INTJs, although you love dark colors, it may not go to your advantage all the time, trust me. I've styled many INTJs, I know. The kind of impression that they give people without even trying. So wearing a lot of black is not ideal for you. White is usually a good color. Beige is a very approachable color for you. It kind of blends with your intellect seamlessly. There's a bit of that warmth and a competence at the same time, because your natural persona is already very direct. The way you speak is very controlled. So when you have a bit of that beige, it kind of adds the warmth and the softness without you trying so hard with what you say. You can still be yourself. It's just the color that you're wearing is different. Probably if all those outfits are not a thing for you, it could be a tailored pants instead of just jeans, or any chinos. Most importantly, your shoes. Sneakers, try to stay away from them if you can, but if you want to wear sneakers at the bottom, don't be too casual. Because structure is how you look decisive without speaking. Your look will send the signal before you start to speak. Rule number 2, this is similar to INFJs. TJs, for some reason, they kind of go for prints. There's a side to them, they kind of like certain kind of prints that showcases a bit of their rebellion, but I would avoid prints and I will go for texture. Similarly, the advice that I give to INFJ, texture is more sophisticated, it's more refined, it's a bit more quiet luxury rather than pattern. It's a lot harder to deal with if you don't have a lot of experience with fashion styling. Most INTJs will say that they hate pattern, but then because it's extreme, then they will wear everything that is plain and flat. So the idea here is to play with different texture. It could be a silky top with something matte. It could be something that is corduroy, it has that texture on it, and then it's matched with dark denim jeans. It's playing with different texture, so it's not flat all the time. When you have, even if you're wearing all black, let's say, your outfit wouldn't look too boring. Rule number 3, your finishing touch. You don't necessarily need to wear accessories. If you have a watch, great. Your watch needs to match the rest of your outfit. Don't go too far out. If you're in a creative industry, sure, you can have something a little bit quirky, but the rest of your outfits must be authoritative, competent. For finishing touch, these are things like make sure that if it's a shirt, it's properly steamed and pressed. These are all the effort that you need to make in order for people to respect you before you start to speak. Lint roll, those, it kind of removes all the little pilling that happens to your knitted outfits, things like that. Or maybe just avoid knit. If you can make sure that you always keep your shoes clean. If not, go for darker colored shoes. Go for things that is easy to care. Maybe faux leather rather than full-on leather, because you do need extra TLC for genuine leather. Or even the leather that you pick could have some texture and boss on it, right? So that it's harder for it to look like it's scuffing, or if there are scratches, it's not so visible. So INTJs, these are some anchor pieces that I think you should consider styling strategies. It really means nothing, or it's not really going to your advantage if you do not know how to dress to relate to people. You do know how to dress to impress. Although you hate the idea of impressing people, it's not about people pleasing. It's about, because you have a goal in life, are you doing what you can? Are you adapting with what you can in order to create an environment where it's easy for you to get those results? Sometimes you rely so much on your intellect that the first few minutes that you talk, people just kind of don't get you because they don't like you, because they perceive you to be aloof. If people find you intimidating, they might just follow you because they fear you, but it's not something that is long-lasting. Even though you are authoritative but you don't dress like it, that's why oftentimes you have this passive-aggressive or like hot and cold behavior with people, because you don't know where you stand, because you appear very ambiguous. So I hope that this kind of gives some sort of clarity to INTJs. Your inferior extroverted sensing doesn't just mean that you fear people judging you for your performance or how you appear, or you're constantly thinking about your performance. You want to make sure that it's done at its best. It can be little things like what you wear can actually affect how you behave and obviously influence how other people perceive you. So remember, your goal is not attention, your goal is clarity. Pieces that I've shared and the awareness of your inferior extroverted sensing, how is it acting out in an unhealthy way through your dressing, is going to make you aware that all you need is clarity in your outfit. Some key silhouettes and shapes that is going to shape the rest of your wardrobe or your personal style. It's not about wanting to get attention from people. At the end of the day, it's your intention and your purpose of why you wear the things that you wear. A healthy INTJ is someone that is able to adapt. And so, anyways guys, let me know what you think. If you're INTJ watching this video, I'll really appreciate your thoughts. How do you dress? Did I hit some of the points? How has it been working for you if you try to dress differently? Let me know your experiences, because it really helps me to not just continue to do contents like this, but it sharpens what I already know and my experiences styling with different personality types. And all I want is to come on here to share all these insights, because I think people can really benefit from it as much as I have benefited it myself long time ago when I was trying to create an image that helps me to achieve my image goals or my goals in life. Anyways guys, if you want to work with me on a one-to-one, you can check out the link in the description box below. I do a free 30 minutes discovery session just for you to find out how it's going to be, the whole experience, what the coaching program is going to be like. So let me know. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.